Consequently, in 1985, the roles were reversed. The newly nicknamed Professor used his recently acquired science to good advantage and turned the tables on his teammate. Prost would become the first French Formula One world champion in the history of the sport at the end of the European Grand Prix at Brands Hatch on October the 6th, 1985. The new number one was a perfectionist and a tireless worker. He would turn out to be more Latin than his predecessor, particularly in his relationship with a racing car.
Ma voiture, j'ai l'impression de toujours faire corps avec. Je sais pas comment dire, mais c'est pas comme une personne, comme un être humain, mais c'est quelque chose de très dangereux. Mais j'essaye de la dominer, mais c'est souvent elle qui me domine. Et on a une relation un petit peu bizarre ensemble, mais pour moi c'est un bijou.
But Prost had basically become a talented and, above all, tactical driver, which earned him his second World Championship title in 1986, in spite of a less competitive car than the Williams Honda. For while Mansell and Piquet lost points to one another in their pointless race against one another for the title, the cunning and determined Prost used what he had to its greatest advantage. A thrilling final round in Australia saw him come from behind and take the title from his two rivals. He was unquestionably the champion of the turbo era, the 80s, during which he averaged 4 wins per year. That was twice as many as either Piquet or Senna, the next most successful drivers of the decade. He took 2 consecutive titles in 1985 and 1986, then lost out to the mounting power of the Williams Hondas and Ferraris. But he was still able to salvage the odd victory, such as his record-breaking 28th victory in Portugal, surpassing Jackie Stewart's record.
C'était le type de course où on doute jamais, où on sait que normalement tout doit aller très bien jusqu'au dernier tour. Même quand j'étais deuxième derrière Berger et qu'il restait peu de tours, je pensais que soit j'allais le rattraper doublé, soit il allait faire une faute. J'étais vraiment très confiant.
Berger, pushed hard by Prost, had to give best with just a few laps to go.
J'étais sur 2 titres de champion du monde, 85-86. 87 était une saison moyenne avec simplement 2 victoires avant celle-ci et beaucoup de problèmes de moteur, donc on était un peu frustrés, toute l'équipe. Et cette course, c'était, je crois, comme un championnat, peut-être même plus.
Piquet took the championship again in 1987, but in 1988, Honda took their powerful engines away from Williams to McLaren. That alone wasn't enough to guarantee Prost the title again. He may have been able to count on the best car and engine combination in the field, but he had to cope with a rival, and a dangerous one because he had the same equipment, his own teammate.
Il y a 2 sortes de concurrents. Il y a l'adversaire qui est dans une autre équipe et il y a le coéquipier qui est aussi lui un concurrent. C'est souvent celui-là le plus redoutable, car c'est les talons.
That teammate was Ayrton Senna, the rising star, and the partnership with Prost at McLaren turned from being a duo to a duel. Unlike Lauda, who knew that his career was in its twilight, Prost refused to accept that he wasn't as quick as the newcomer, and what followed was a merciless battle which ended by turning sour. After Senna took the title in 1988, Prost took his revenge in 1989, following a tangle between the 2 teammates at Suzuka, a disputed situation which saw Prost leave the team. But he found a well-paid home at Ferrari, where he was welcomed as the Messiah. They'd been chasing the world title in vain for 10 years. The Frenchman came close to taking the title to Maranello in 1990, but his hopes were dashed by another collision with Senna at Suzuka. The Brazilian later admitted that he had purposefully hit the Frenchman in revenge for the previous year's accident. Sacked by Ferrari in 1991, Prost temporarily quit the sport and left Senna to claim the title of undisputed number 1. Senna was the latest in the Brazilian line of world champions. preceded by Emerson Fittipaldi and Nelson Piquet. He came to everyone's notice at the 1984 Monaco Grand Prix, when he fought through the field in pouring rain, driving the relatively uncompetitive Toleman, and all but overtook Prost when the race was stopped. Snapped up by Lotus, the obviously talented Senna rapidly established himself as the new force in motorsport. What made this fanatical perfectionist even more special was his constant quest for the ultimate performance, remarkable vision and relentless determination.
Unless I have a feeling that I'm giving my very best, I don't feel happy. And in order I can give my very best, I have to concentrate, I have to work hard, and I have to push all the time myself and the people that are working around me to improve and to be better.
First of all, he became the all-time #1 in the pursuit of pole positions. Nobody knew quite how to get the best out of the super sticky but short-lived qualifying tyres like Senna, nor how to clear the track of traffic to give him a clean run. Added to these talents was a mysterious personality, and the combination was sometimes worrying, sometimes frightening. Senna's first Grand Prix victory came in Portugal in 1985, his second season, and as a result of a remarkable drive in soaking conditions as at Monaco a year earlier. Such was his car control and supremacy above all others that some nicknamed him Magic that day. The strength of his powers of analysis, his nerve and his confidence have all contributed to his remarkable results.
Il a un talent naturel énorme, il a l'intelligence, il a la jeunesse, il a la sensibilité pour les réglages, que ce soit moteur, que ce soit châssis. Je pense qu'il a vraiment tout ce qu'il faut pour être champion du monde. Il sera champion du monde.
In 1988, Senna joined McLaren alongside Prost, who hitherto had been unrivaled since Lauda's departure. This was his home ground. The Brazilian would have to intrude to establish himself in the new team. But apart from his remarkable qualities, Senna came with one more specific asset, the loyalty that his perfectionism had instilled in the Honda mechanics since his days at Lotus. The Japanese engineers were great fans. No one else spent so much time with them, helping them understand and in turn helping them to conquer the world of Formula One. That year remains in the annals of Formula One as an incredible one. Statistically, the McLaren pair came close to a Grand Slam. They won 15 Grand Prix out of 16. 10 times they finished first and second, 6 more than the previous record. Such dominance suggests a very tedious season, but it was far from that. In fact, it was one of the most lively ever. Prost and Senna almost took turns at winning in their fascinating battle, as though they were following a script. The Frenchman had the best start to the year and equalled his own record of 7 victories. But the Brazilian would equal that and then score one more, winning the championship in the face of his more senior colleague in his first season with the team. It was a remarkable feat, but according to Senna, just one step on the way to his holy grail.
There is a big difference between winning a championship or being a true champion. Every year there is a winner, but not every year there is a champion.
In truth, the new world champion had been affected by a psychological war that Prost had waged against him in order to destabilize him.
What can disturb the image of a champion is polemics and antagonism coming from people who cannot accept being defeated and trying to find excuses when they lose instead of recognizing that they have been beaten. That can make a lot of distortion.
Prost was a past master in the art of manipulating the media and had instigated a campaign to suggest that his team favoured the other driver at his expense. And Senna, with a touch of the spoilt child, was attempting to get his own back in the 1989 Japanese Grand Prix with a risky overtaking manoeuvre, only to find Prost slamming the door, and not very well. hell broke loose. While blame could be attributed to both drivers, Senna became the scapegoat. He was disqualified and didn't simply lose the championship, but also his dignity. He was mortified, certain that he was the victim of a conspiracy and consequently set out on a futile crusade against the governing body. But these events, far from undermining his confidence, actually strengthened it. Having been accused of dangerous driving in 1990, this time he treated his critics with scorn. And he got his own back on Prost the following year by turfing him off the track at Suzuka and taking the championship. Just revenge for what he regarded as similar treatment suffered a year before, which had cost him the title.
I have had great races in my career, fortunately. But I'm still looking for my best one in the future.
Senna would go on to win a third title in 1991, and he could go on to equal, if not beat, the magnificent record of 5 titles won by Fangio. But there will be plenty of young drivers trying to beat him. Who will be the legendary drivers of the future?